So the Maryland Rebooted free webinar series is offered by the Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland. The Maryland Rebooted program was created to really help Maryland business owners navigate the impact of COVID-19, which is still continuing, unfortunately. Starting in 2020, the program has launched 11 successful webinars last year, which are all available for you to watch again on our website. And today we're kicking off the new year with an exciting lecture from Smith School's very own strategy professor, Rashri Agarwal. Rashri is a Rudolph P. Lamone Chair and Professor in Entrepreneurship, and she's also the director of the Ed Snyder Center for Enterprise and Markets. She has received numerous recognition for her work in entrepreneurship, so I'm really excited to hear from her today, and I'm sure a lot of you are as well. In today's webinar, she'll lead us through a session to revisit our purpose in life and the steps we can take to ensure that we are headed in the right direction to achieve our own purpose. So this will really help us kind of kick off the new year with a good start. My name is Nicole Kim, and I'm a coordinator for the Maryland Rebooted program, and I'll help today to deliver questions that the audience might have to Rashri. So please feel free to use either the Q&A section or the chat function so that I can deliver your questions to Rashri whenever you have any questions. So, all right, without further ado, I'll hand off the floor to Rashri.
Thank you, Nicole. And I hope that everyone's new year is off to a great start. I'm Rashri Agarwal, and I'm honored to be sharing the next hour and a half with you. If you'll notice, we very deliberately chosen to have a Zoom meeting rather than a Zoom webinar format. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions as you go along, or even share your video so that we can have much more of an interactive discussion itself. I would request that if you don't have a question, please do mute so that we can, we don't have to talk over each other. But if you have a question, raise your hand. Nicole will be monitoring that, or just pop up on video and let me know, and we'll be more than happy to have this conversation. So, I know that most of you are enterprising people, whether you own businesses or are working at organizations where you are required to think about purpose, think about your own enterprise. And so, what I hope you will see today is concepts that will resonate with you. In fact, what I would dare to say is that many of you are living these concepts already. But today, what we're going to do is make them much more explicit so that you can be thinking about these frameworks more intentionally, so you can be more purposeful about what does success mean to you as it relates to fulfilling your purpose. So without further ado, let me go ahead and talk about how I think about success and purpose to begin with. So typically, when we talk about the term enterprise, we usually are thinking about it as if it's an economic organization or activity, as in an entrepreneurial startup or a business enterprise or economically purposeful activity. But today, in addition to this meaning, I also want us to think about the other meaning of enterprise, an undertaking that is especially difficult, complicated, or risky, or a willingness to engage in daring or difficult action, as in showing great enterprise in a crisis. Now, when you put the two together and particularly apply it towards you, you can think about enterprise as in me, my enterprise. And in that sense, each and every one is already a CEO. So, what does it take to be the CEO of Me Incorporated, my enterprise incorporated? As teaching strategy and entrepreneurship for multiple years now, I think I can boil down the essence of being a CEO to having answers to the following four questions. Every CEO. So let me back up a little bit out here. Before I even go into what does every CEO think about, let me ask you this. Way back when you could drive wherever you wanted, leave the house, go to work, do whatever things, right? What is the one product that you probably wouldn't say today that I cannot live without? And I'm not talking about food or clothing and shelter, okay? But what is the one product that if you don't have with you, you're going to turn right back and say, I need that?
The
Denise?
cell phone.
Cell phone. Would all of you who are also muted and not on video agree with Denise that it is a cell phone that would be very, very critical for you? Right? So let me ask you, Denise, because you're brave enough to talk about it, why did you say cell phone?
Unfortunately, because they're glued to us now, it's hard to even think back to the day when we used, when we stopped at a telephone booth to make a call. You know, it's unbelievable. Yeah, everybody's got them and we can't do without them. We always have them in our hand.
Okay, so why can't we do without it? Is it really just about using the phone to talk? And I see that a lot of you are using the chat feature too, so that's great. You know, so Lori, you're saying yes, definitely. I'm getting a lot of yes, cell phone. So what is it about? And I assume that all of you now mean your smartphone, which the phone is just one feature, right? Mm-hmm. So why has this product that wasn't even around 20 years ago become so indispensable to us? Tim says it's an all-around scheduling communications device, portability. I like that. My schedule, appointment, notes, all are on the phone. What else do you do with it?
And I think overall you stay connected. Everybody wants to be connected.
That's right. You want to be connected. Okay, very good. Instant information, that's true. It carries all of the information you want. If you're going from one place to another, you've got the GPS device around it too. So if you think about what is your world being the people you meet, the things you do, and the places you go. Would you agree that that's your world? Right? This gadget becomes indispensable because it allows you to connect with the people in your world. It allows you to go places that define your world. And it allows you to do the things that you want to do in your world. So that's one reason why, of course, this cell phone, it represents not just a gadget, not just technology, but it really represents your connection to your world. By the way, if I were to now ask you the follow-up question, do you own an iPhone or do you own an Android device, right? How many of you would say, I have an iPhone? iPhone, Tim says iPhone. Okay, lots of iPhones, some Androids. Okay, so let me ask one of you, let's say I'm gonna pick on Denise, what do you have?
An iPhone.
iPhone. Angel, what about you?
I have an iPhone also.
Okay, who has an Android that's willing to come up on Zoom? Okay, Lee, you have an Android. So Denise, if I were to ask you to flip with Lee, with her Android, would you like to swap?
No.
No. Lee, what about you? Would you swap?
I probably would because I prefer the iPhone. I just have the Android.
Okay. Okay, I have an Android, and Denise, I wouldn't swap with you, right? So, but isn't an iPhone and an Android phone on a Samsung and so on just the same? Each of us does exactly what we want to do with it, right? So Denise, why wouldn't you swap the Android for your iPhone?
Sadly, I think we're conditioned. I think, if I'm not mistaken, iPhone was the first one came out. It was so different. It had everything. It was convenience. I related to, I still call ATMs, what do I call them? Most machines, because that was the first name for it. But
Right.
they're not most machines. They're, I think, ATMs.
Yeah.
I still call the drugstore, well, I used to call it People's for a long time. But anyway, I think
Right.
we're conditioned because of the name and the brand.
Well, it's partly the name and the brand, of course, but it's also we're used to that phone, right? Someone said that they had a BlackBerry before that, right? Each and every one of us has our preferences. And even though these smartphones seem like they are similar to each other, they still have some distinctive features that makes Denise prefer an iPhone and for me to prefer my Samsung Android machine, right? So let's go back one more. And since we're talking about CEOs and coming back into this notion of Me Incorporated, who's the current CEO of Apple? Tim Cook, right? And so, yes, so here are some questions that I would say. So, sorry, what do you think are the questions that Tim Cook is thinking about? And so as a CEO, may I submit that Tim Cook is really thinking about 4 fundamental questions as he's leading Apple. And this is the same for Parachai as he's leading Google. What is my purpose or mission statement? What does success look like for me? What's my value proposition? And with whom should I trade? Now, my sense is that as I put the first 3 questions, all of you were kind of nodding your heads. Yep, that makes sense. But was there kind of a puzzled look when I put in the final question of with whom should I trade for many of you? I've noticed that especially when I've given these presentations in the past before, that is one question that people say, well, I don't get that exactly. And I apologize that my dog has decided that he wants to make himself known. I don't know if you're hearing him barking in the background, but hopefully he'll stop very quickly. So with whom should I trade is a question that I hope that you will completely understand and agree with as a fundamental question that you should be asking if you're thinking like a CEO. But let's take each of these questions and frameworks that I can help you think about as you apply this to yourself, right? And so the first and fundamental question is, of course, what is my purpose or mission statement? Have you paused to define that for yourself, for your life? And you can think about your life as your holistic life. Or you can compartmentalize your life into your personal and your professional work, or your professional and personal space. You could define purpose holistically for both components, or you could even define it for work or for personal reasons. Today, what we're going to do is focus, especially because this also relates to your entrepreneurship endeavors, into how you may define these for your professional aspects. So, how might you write out your purpose or mission statement? I'm going to have you pause and just jot down something for yourself. Take a minute. What is my purpose or mission statement?
I'm willing to share. Can you hear me?
Yes, go on, Phil.
My name is Phil. Well, this relates to me personally, and it's focused on myself and the fact that I'm retired right now. So I look at it saying my mission statement would be to ensure a happy, fulfilling retirement, maintaining health and serenity.
Very good. Yes. And I've noticed that others are saying my purpose is to help others with the technology shift, okay? To deliver happiness. Others? Okay.
For this,
yeah, go ahead, Lee.
is that okay?
Yes, please.
Sorry. So my purpose for this year, at least, is to help people change so that my colleagues in the aquarium industry have the best chance of thriving in a rapidly changing time.
Right. So notice that what Lee said, what Phil said, many of you have your mission statement is to start a nonprofit business. There are really 2 components to almost everyone's purpose. And what I'm going to share with you is the general content of it. Now, of course, the context is going to differ for each and every one of us. But almost every one of us, as John Allison, who was the former CEO and president of BB&T, said once, all of us want to think about our purpose being around problems that are deeply meaningful to each and every one of us. And there are really two components to a purpose statement. The first one is every one of us today in this room, and those of you who are listening to the recording later on too, you're attending this session because you do care about making the world a better place to live. And as Phil was saying, another important component of it is by doing something important to yourself. Right? Now, be honest. How many of you rolled your eyes when I said making a world a better place to live is a purpose? Because I find that a lot, especially from teenage kids, right? I used to have teenage daughters. Rolling of the eyes is something that I'm very familiar with. But often when I present this and I say making the world a better place to live, I get rolling of eyes for two reasons. One, of course, it sounds so cliched, making the world a better place to live. Or really, come on, Rashri, is that what you're going to start with? Or the other way, the reaction that I get is, this is too paralyzing for me. What do you mean making the world a better place to live? How can I, one single person, make this world, this huge giant world with all of the problems that we've got, how can we make that a better place to live, right? So that's one component of the purpose, and I'm going to come back to it in just a second. But the other component is something that we often forget about or don't necessarily focus on as much as we should. And we certainly don't teach our kids this second component of this need to do something important for yourself. So let me explain both of those as I understand it. Remember, we talked about the cell phone a few minutes ago, and we talked about why it's essential to your world. And your world is the places you go, the things that you do, and the people that you meet. These are all your choices. And that is your sphere of influence. So if you now define your world as these three components, all of a sudden, it is not cliched because the people in the world are important to you. The things that you're doing are important to you. The places that you choose to visit are choices that you're making. And so all of these are things that are critically important to you. So of course you want them to be better. And if you forget about the fact that you are not better by doing something important for yourself, then the one constant in your world, which is you, is miserable. And so then for sure, your world is not a better place because you are not happy in it. So both components matter, and we're going to come back to this element of purpose for you. Now notice, of course, that each and every one of us would say something like this. I want to make my family happy, right? Or as Phil said, I want to live a life of happiness and serenity. Well, what does that really mean? How do you instantiate it in things that you're doing, problems that you're choosing to solve? So we're going to come back to that. And one of the things I'm going to do is also use myself as an example of what do I mean by what's my purpose. And by the way, these things aren't easy to do. They require a lot of self-reflection. And of course, you go back and you practice with it too. But as I said, hopefully these frameworks will be helpful to you as you're thinking through them. So what is my purpose? For me, it is about enabling upward mobility in the economic, psychological, and intellectual realms. So of course, you can easily see that given that this is what I am defining as my purpose, I'm passionate about upward mobility. It's no surprise to you then that I'm an educator and a professor at the University of Maryland, because this is the way that I can meet lifelong learners such as yourselves, as well as students that are coming in from high school into college, and I can help them achieve their upward mobility dreams. Now, what is Chris Stewart's purpose? You might ask me, Rashri, who is Chris Stewart? Well, Chris Stewart happens to be my Pilates instructor. Her purpose is to make sure that health is a natural human condition. So notice that when I talk about purpose, both Chris and I have very similar ideas in that we're doing something that's important to us and it's making the world a better place. But Chris's purpose is very different from my purpose. And that's just okay, because there are problems that are multiple problems there that need to be solved. And each and every one of us can choose which ones are the ones that are most important to us. So think through, what problem do you want to solve and why is it important to you? Keeping that front and center, we can then ask the following 3 questions in the living a purposeful life. So the next question, of course, is, what does success look like to me? And I'm going to again have you pause and just jot something down. What does success look like to you? Accomplishing your goals, seeing people who have succeeded because of my inputs, a happy family, seeing others more comfortable and confident from the services I offer, to be a successful entrepreneur, financial stability while doing things I like. Okay, so let me go ahead and use a quote from Mark Watney in The Martian. Have you guys seen the movie The Martian? It's actually one of my favorite movies to see. So if you haven't seen it, please do take the chance. Take the time today, in fact, to rent it, however you want to do it, but definitely watch it. Those of you who have, what do you think success means to Mark Watney, who's the title character in The Martian? Anyone who's seen The Martian? Okay, so basically life, yes. Emily, I love the fact that you said keep solving problems. If you solve enough problems, you get to go home. Yes, that is success for him. Potatoes, that's another important reason why. In fact, this scene is from a potato scene. Obviously, it matters for survival. But there is a point in time. By the way, the reason I like this movie is that it is, as Emily notes, right? It's a very upbeat movie. Even though I would say to you that, generally speaking, Martian, it's about survival. How morbid can that be, right? However, if you see the movie, it is really an upbeat movie. You're going to be laughing your ass off, excuse my language, if you were to see it within 5 minutes of that movie. There's this one time when Mark Watney actually loses hope and he thinks he's not going to make it. Spoiler alert, by this time he's already started to communicate with the captain of the ship that's trying to bring him back. And he says to them, tell my parents, because he thinks he's not going to make it. So he says, tell my parents. Now, if you are a 30+ person, single, and you want to send this as a last message to your parents, what would you say if you were Mark Watney? Tell my parents. Tell my parents. Many of you might say, I love you, right? That would be a natural thing to say. And in fact, what he does say is, tell my parents, I love what I do and I'm very good at it. And I'll be dying for something big and beautiful and so much more than myself. Tell them I can live with that. Being able to say, I love what I do and I'm very good at it, that is true success, right? And of course, financial stability is important. Achieving goals is important. But that state of consciousness that is able to say, I'm good at it, and boy, I love what I do. Often we are able to say one part, but not the other. So being able to say both of them really requires you to think about your abilities and your aspirations. So here's my first framework for you that would be helpful, right? If you keep that purpose in mind that you had, that you already defined as your first question. Now, in order to achieve that purpose, there are going to be a lot of things that you will need to do, activities that you need to do. Some of those activities you're going to be good at and that you're going to love. Other activities you're not going to be so good at, and you're not necessarily going to love it either. So what would be helpful is to make a list of all of the activities that you need in order to achieve your purpose. And then go ahead and put them in this grid where you define them based on whether you're good at doing that activity or not, and whether you love doing that particular activity or not. Now, if you're doing activities that are going to fulfill your purpose, but you're neither good at it, nor you love doing it, that's what I would call being in a misery quadrant. Wouldn't you agree? Right. If, however, you love what you do, but you're not good at it, I'd call that a hobby. Now, by the way, a hobby comes from the term hobby horse, a pony that's in a fair going round and round, but not really accomplishing anything, right? That's because you're not really good at doing that. Now, if you're good at it, but your heart's not in it, you don't love it, then that's just another job. So where you want to be are activities that you can choose where you say, I love what I do and I'm good at it. That's what makes you feel like you're in a calling. It's a vocation for you. It's not just a paycheck. Notice what happens too as a virtuous spiral. If you're good at something, it gives you a sense of self-esteem. And so you like doing it that much more. So when you're good at something, you start loving it. And when you love something, you want to invest and become even better at it. So then you become even better at it. And so you can continue with this virtuous spiral of it being a calling. Now, let me actually use a very specific example of how we can do this. So for me, for instance, creating new knowledge and developing programs that empower lifelong learners from high school to professional contexts is what success looks like for me. For Pat Stewart, whom I was talking about earlier, success is being able to point to clients that have achieved their dreams or their goals for their health conditions, right? You can point out to that. For me, at the Ed Snyder Center, where I'm a director, success also means these are the programs that I've helped launch. There's a Self Summer Camp. We celebrate students who do leadership. We have an Ink Tank podcast. We translate our research into publications and practice that would help for you. I write very regularly in a Forbes column. So these are things that I love what I do and I'm good at. Let me also use an example from my own personal life out here. So here's a summer project circa 2015 for my husband. Now, just to set up the story for you, my husband's very much of a Ford man. And the girls decided to give him around 2010 for Father's Day, a Bronco that he could then rebuild. Now, this Bronco was really, really in bad shape, but 5 years later, this is what it looked like, right? Yay-high tires, V6 engine. He actually painted this orange coral color, and he changed the seats, did everything there, right? Now, of course, my daughters, as they grew up, this was their dad's passion. And so here's a photograph of my daughter now helping my husband work on this Bronco. Now, my younger daughter, circa 2015, said, I want to go four-wheeling with you too, Dad. And I want to be able to drive my own car. But she didn't want a Bronco. She wanted a Jeep. Now, my husband, being a Ford man, didn't necessarily know much about Jeeps. And of course, for every one Bronco that you could buy out there, there are at least 15 Jeeps that are available for him to do it. So he was genuinely confused about which Jeep to buy. I kid you not. That's when I whipped out my ability and aspiration matrix one. And I said, okay, if that's your specific purpose, let's think about all of the things you need to have happen so that that Jeep looks as good as your Bronco does 5 years later. And so I asked my husband, I said, what is it that you enjoy doing? What is it that you're good at? And what is it that you hate doing? Things that you're really, really bad at accomplishing. So as he said, this orange colored paint was hugely difficult for him to do and get it right. And he hated doing it. And he was really, really bad at welding. But in his former life, when he was a mechanic, he enjoyed working on engines and transmissions. And he also was very good at fixing the electrical stuff. So what do you think he chose to buy as a used Jeep so that he could work on with his daughter? And what do you think the Jeep had and didn't have as components in terms of activities now? Given what I have told you about my husband, Rob.
I'm thinking it had a good body and paint job already.
Okay.
But he liked working on, I think you said the engine, right?
Yes.
So it probably needed a rebuilt engine, which he loves to work on, for him to do that.
That's right. And that's what Emily said too. Did not have to paint. Exactly. So choosing what to do and what not to do, because he hated doing body work and he wasn't good at it either. Those were, so you can see the Jeep, right? Nice, white, spotless, doesn't need any welding or anything. But of course it had a blown up transmission and a missing engine. So he could go on to rebuild the guts, the transmission, the engine, the electrical. By the way, the only thing there is it's not a summer project. It's still going on. It's still out there in our garage. It's never going to be finished. But you know what? He loves what he does and he's good at it. And that's what matters towards fulfilling your purpose. So I hope that helped in terms of how you may take this concept and then bring it to life for even a specific purpose project that can be very similar. And then, of course, you can be thinking about this as it relates to your work and other professional activities too. So I hope that's helpful to you in terms of thinking about what success looks like. So then let's turn to the third question. What's my value proposition? Again, let's say in 5 years. By the way, I often said, even in success looks like, define it in 5 years. Why 5 years? Well, because it's not so far down the line that you cannot visualize it, or it seems very, very unachievable. But it's not so close that you can't spend enough time investing in gathering the skills and competencies so that you can deliver on it. So this is true for both success as well as for your value proposition. Again, I'm going to pause and ask you to just jot down, what do you believe is your value proposition as it relates to the purpose that you have defined for yourself? And again, you can either type it in chat or unmute yourself and speak up.
I'll speak up.
Okay, Denise, go ahead.
I think with my service, do you want me to tell you what I do? So it
Yes,
makes
please
sense?
give us the context and then
Okay.
tell us what your value proposition is.
Okay, so I create custom gift baskets for businesses, and specifically to help them come up with a unique gift that they can give to their employees, clients, and prospective clients to show that they value and appreciate them. So the gifts are not just something standard. There's something that the basic gift is designed with the recipient in mind, so they know that it's specially made just for them. I think that my value proposition is the fact that, one, I provide a quality product. I only use quality products. Someone once asked me to put something, they asked me to put a $5 bottle of wine in, and I'm like, I can't do that. because I'm not going to lower the standards of my product. And then also I provide exceptional customer service. I believe I grew up on the with the belief that the customer is always right. So it really doesn't matter what happened, what went wrong. And thank goodness I haven't had a lot of those conversations. But if the client's not happy, my saying is, and my guarantee is, if you're not, what is it? It goes like, if you're not satisfied, we're not satisfied. Because I want you to be 100% satisfied. And so it really doesn't matter what happened. We're going to fix it and make it right.
Thank you, Denise. Yes,
You're welcome.
that really nailed it, because notice that there were two components that Denise talked about when she defined what her value proposition is. And just to kind of bring it to life exactly the way Denise said it, you said it so well, Denise, right? Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, when he talks about value, he says, I think it's good that I don't think it's good that we're perceived as different. I think it's important that we're perceived as much better. If being different is essential to being better, then we have to do that. So, of course, he's talking about being different, but different for difference sake is not as important as being able to provide value to the other person, which is being better, right? And so, what Denise is talking about is not just the unique features that she offers her clients, but also the benefits that the clients get because of the unique features that she offers. So, value is really about offering a value proposition, is asking yourself, what is my feature benefit matrix? What features do I offer that provide unique and distinctive value to the customer? And that's why I thought, Denise, you really nailed it so well in terms of carrying out both components. And I'm going to come back to that just a little bit, but here's my second framework for you then. So the feature benefit matrix, again, what you should do is get that purpose that you've already defined out. And again, you're going to define the activities that are needed in order to accomplish the purpose. But where in the ability and aspirations matrix, you were thinking about whether it is the activities that you loved and what you were good at. Here, you're still thinking about whether you're good at doing something. But in addition to that, you're going to be thinking about the uniqueness of you being able to provide this activity as opposed to someone else who can provide it, right? By the way, do remind me before I forget to talk about whether the uniqueness means you're one and only in the entire world. Right? The y-axis is about the value that this feature offers to the customer. Right? Now, of course, if you're going to be you don't have anything unique really to offer, nor is it providing value, then there's no distinctive value to even have as a conversation about you offering a value proposition, right? If you're providing a lot of value to your customer, but you're not unique, then this is the area where you're a cog in a wheel, easily replaceable. The first time that there is a downturn, people are indifferent between whether they hire you or hire somebody else, buy your product or buy somebody else's product, right? If you're offering something unique, but it's not providing enough features to somebody else or value to someone else, this is what I call you the belle or the prince of your ball, but nobody's coming to your party, right? So where you want to be is the sense of being indispensable. Right? That's what you want to focus on, is what are my unique features and how does it provide distinctive value so that I'm the first person that comes to mind if these tasks need to be done. Now, again, you might say, but Rashri, that's a tall order, right? You're asking me to define what is distinctive and unique about myself in one world, right? So can there just be one of you? Again, go back to your world. Your world are the places you go, the people that you meet, and the things that you do. You don't have to be the one and only in the entire world to be unique, but you do have to provide these as unique within your sphere of influence, right? And so there are multiple ways in which you can continue to create value even within your team members, right? So going back to Pat Stewart, what's her value proposition to me as a Pilates instructor? She combines deep empathy with solid knowledge of Pilates so that she can develop these customized programs from one session to the next, paying attention to what my needs are, along with all of her other clients, right? Which is one of the reasons why she's indispensable to me, right? Denise, those were the things that you were talking about as it relates to you creating these customized gifts. My own value proposition is about integrating research, teaching, and engagement so that I can create unique programs, frameworks such as the one that I'm sharing with you, so that it solves the needs of the innovative and the entrepreneurial spirit, and which provides the skills and the savvy and the moral ground for the producer and the value creator. So I was asked to please repeat what I just stated about my instructor. My Pilates instructor, I felt like she was able to combine her deep empathy and her knowledge of Pilates together in a manner that was very unique, right? Let me give you another example. So how does this translate for me and what I do in the Ed Snyder Center, right? What we've done here is been able to provide a lot of events where we talk about finding a great place to work. I've given some talks about taking control of your own life and why that's important. Or, fostering enterprise where the journey itself becomes the destination. So these are ways in which my unique proposition is, yes, I'm a strategy professor. Yes, I'm an entrepreneurship professor. And there are some very, very good ones out there. But this is the way that I provide unique value in my mind. Let me also take another very specific example of of how you might do a value proposition for a specific purpose. And here I'm going to use the example of the Intentional Life Lab, which was just very recently launched by the Snyder Center. And in fact, everything that I'm talking to you is consistent with the concept of the Intentional Life Lab. And as you'll notice, the premise of the Intentional Life Lab is to think about me as well as us, both at the same time. And so there are 6 pillars of the Intentional Life Lab, 3 that focus on me. What's my purpose and character? Wellness goals are very important because physical well-being is also important to your mental feeling. Financial prosperity is important. That's, of course, me. And the other 3 pillars relate to relationships, which we have with each other, a sense of community and civic responsibility, and then, of course, being out in the nature too. So these 6 pillars were, in fact, something that Sarah Wallach, who is the founding director of the Intentional Life Lab, passionately believes in. And so she came to me and the Ed Snyder Center and said, I would really like for us to develop courses, workshops, programs that is around this Intentional Life Lab so that people can be leading fulfilling lives. Our students don't just graduate thinking about how much am I making, but 5 years later, are they in jobs and careers where they feel fulfilled, where they feel like they're living that happy, serene life filled that you were talking about, right? And so what does Sarah do, right? She knows that she needs certain activities to get the Intentional Life Lab rolling, but she can't do all of these activities herself. So she has to focus on what's her unique value proposition and not do the activities that she isn't unique at, and not that's valuable, but she does not provide the highest value possible. So similar to what I just showed you with Rob's Jeep project, we can think about the feature benefit matrix for our Intentional Life Lab. And the things that Sarah herself is neither unique at nor can provide distinctive value by herself, are administrative needs, pedagogical expertise as it relates to media use, my own knowledge and relationships. Those aren't unique to Sarah. But what is unique to Sarah are her entrepreneurial creativity, her economics background combined with her empathy, as well as her practical experiences. So notice that if we were to go back to this slide that I just shared with you, right? Uniqueness of features as well as the benefit that it provides to her. All of those activities were important for the Intentional Life Lab. But for Sarah, she can't do all of them. She has to focus on whatever it is that she's unique at and provides high value, and let others do the things that she is not unique at. And she is not the person that provides that value, but somebody else does. And so here is the way that you would divide up the activities for Intentional Life Lab, and Sarah chooses to do some but not all. I use this as an example for you because regardless of what your purpose is, you're not going to be able to do all of the activities for yourself. So choose to focus on things that you're best at and let someone else who's better at other things do the things that they're doing. You know, one of the things that I often say to people is that the cost of focusing on your weaknesses is that you don't optimize on your strengths. So make sure that your weaknesses don't become your Achilles heel, but after that, always focus on what your value proposition is. The final question, which I hope you can already see why it is an important question to ask too, is with whom should I trade? Here, I would like you to think about the trader principle, something that Ayn Rand, the philosopher, said. A trader does not treat men as masters or slaves, but as independent equals. He deals with men by means of a free, voluntary exchange, an exchange which benefits both parties by their own independent judgment. Now, when we think about trade, then we should immediately be thinking about voluntary trade. No one is forcing anyone else to do things that they don't want to do. So here now, we can bring the two y-axes of the frameworks that I've talked to you before, right? The benefit to you doing something that's important to you, what you love, was the y-axis of your ability and aspiration matrix. The y-axis of your value proposition matrix is making the world a better place, doing something that's important to your customer or provides value there. Notice that now you're bringing the two components of your purpose together, doing something that makes your world a better place and is important for you. And that is bringing your success and your value proposition together too. So benefit to you, if you're not providing benefit to yourself or to the other person, that's what we would call a lose-lose relationship. Someone could win. So if the other person loses and you win, or the other person wins, but you lose, if one person is going to lose in a relationship, what's going to happen to that relationship? Either a lose-win or a win-lose. Denise is saying it's not going to work because one person, whoever's losing, is going to walk away, right? So either a lose-win or a win-lose is not sustainable. It's going to end up being a lose-lose relationship. So the only sustainable voluntary relationship is one where you're assuring that it's a win-win for both of them. Now notice that this is what we were implicitly talking about when we were thinking about the specific projects and applications that I gave you, right? So trade relationships can be through markets, as in Rob buying a Jeep that had great bodywork, painting, welding, right? So that he could focus on the things that he was good at. So you could trade through markets, as we often do when we specialize in a particular product or service or in a business, and we allow others to make things that we then want to buy from them. Or you can think about trade, as in the case of Sarah with the Ed Snyder Center and myself, as intra-organizational relationships where team members are bringing their unique skills and competencies together, and they're specializing in activities that are complementary to each other so that together they're fulfilling the shared purpose. So for me, what does whom do I trade with mean? I trade with people who are drawn to the vision that free and creative individuals um, are driven to excel, and in trading value for value, make the world a better place. I end up wanting to work with people to create a virtuous spiral between their abilities and aspirations in themselves and in others. So for me, these are my trade partners within the Ed Snyder Center and within the University of Maryland in my research, in my teaching, and in my Ed Snyder Center staff domain. And then, of course, in terms of other organizations, we benefit a lot from our donors. Snyder Foundation, that created the Ed Snyder Center for Markets through a generous gift, as well as Charles Koch, along with many other donors who help us fulfill our passion for upward mobility. So to bring it all together, enterprising ability and aspiration requires you to answer those 4 questions. 1, what's your purpose? Making the world a better place by doing something important for yourself. Defining success as being something that you love doing and being good at it. Defining your value proposition as in creating features in yourself that provide value to others. And with whom should you trade? Always focus on win-win relationships, because it's collaboration, not competition. That's the hallmark of trade. So what does this mean then for you and the organization that you're either being an enterprising leader of or an enterprising employee or team member? Organizations that you choose to associate with, fundamentally, organizations are made up of individuals who have different skills, different beliefs, different incentives and needs. But an organization unifies these different individuals by a common or a shared purpose, which is then achieved through specialization, governance, and coordination. So this then brings me to what I call the trader Sudoku. Have you heard about the concept Sudoku, the game itself, right? It's got 9 faces in it. 9 squares in a small square that then make 9 squares themselves, right? And you have to go through 1 through 9, not repeating any one component together. So if you were to think about a trader Sudoku, this is you dreaming your what if, a purpose that you are passionate about. Now, typically, when we think about a Sudoku, right, or a trader Sudoku, we think about trade. There's a me and then there's a you. Just like right now, I'm talking, you're listening, but we're engaging, we're thinking together, right? And typically we think about trade as what am I doing and what are you doing? So we could at one level say, well, Rashri's talking about her frameworks and you're absorbing it and you're thinking about how you can apply it to yourselves, right? But if you think about going deeper into it, these are just 4 of the 5 components, the 9 components. What brings me and you together is a common objective. What are we trying to accomplish together, right? And then, of course, it gets my aspirations and your aspirations together. What am I pursuing? What are you pursuing? How does this fit into each of our values and our mission? And then finally, how are we bringing complementary capabilities to the table? What am I bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the table? Now, across all of these 9 boxes, you really have maybe no choice in maybe one. And that's the me. And even there, I say maybe, because I like to think about ourselves as creating ourselves through our choices, right? But you have choices about each and every cell in the other way, right? You have a choice about who is the you that you want to trade with. You can choose to have people that bring you up, lift you up, or people that bring you down, right? So choose carefully in terms of the people that you want to have in your life. And you can think about your actions and what their actions are, but take the time to discover for yourself what are your aspirations, what are your capabilities, and what are the capabilities and the aspirations of the other people that you want to trade with. And how does this common objective bring it all together? So the next time you're thinking about dreaming your what if, I hope that this Trader Sudoku concept, along with what I have shared with you about being a CEO of Me Enterprise, helps you think through what you want to do and whom you want to work with and what would you like them to do and how do you convince them and induce them towards this common objective that you can then accomplish together. Things that you may enjoy watching, reading, or listening if this resonated with you. A few of the things that I have really enjoyed in terms of books: John Allison's The Leadership Crisis and the Free Market Cure. James Clear's Atomic Habits is a really, really cool read in terms of after you define your purpose, how do you make sure that you're there with it? And he means atomic habits in both ways. Atomic, as in small changes in your habits that then lead to atomic results. So it's one of my favorite go-to books in terms of helping me think about an implementation plan after I've defined the purpose that John Allison talks so nicely in his book. Cal Newport's Deep Work is also a very good read because it allows you to think about how you can do deep work in the limited time that you have. Charles Koch's book on Good Profit is also good. By the way, last March, when COVID had just hit, I know everyone was feeling isolated or down. So I gathered together 8 of my all-time feel-good movies. By the way, so you can click on that. I will be sharing these slides with you. They're also on my Forbes op-ed pages. I write them. Many of the things that I've discussed with you are available as op-eds that I have written. Feel free to go to rashriagarwal.com to see that. But these 8 movies, they're really good. Some of them are Hollywood movies, of course, that you'd be familiar with. Some of them, representing my culture, are Bollywood movies, song and dance, fun-filled ones, but they have a very important message to them too. So recommend that you do them. And then what I will leave you with before we go through the Q&A session is 2 quotes that I really live by, both by Eric Hoffer. The first one focuses on ability. In times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. And then on aspiration, we're often told that talent creates its own opportunities, but it sometimes seems that intense desire creates not only its own opportunities, but also its own talent. Here's wishing you the best of your ability and your aspirations. Thank you for sharing your time with me. We'll now open up for Q&A. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, put up your video, any and all questions that you may have.
Hi, this is Angel. I don't have a question, but I want to say that this was awesome. Just your information was totally on the mark, and it's my confirmation to where I'm trying to go with my own business, because I've always been a helper, and it's put it together in me to say, you're on the road, Angel. And I thank you.
Thank you, Angel.
I just wanted to echo what Angel said, Angel's absolutely right. It was wonderful, very thought-provoking, made me stop and think about a lot of things. So thank you very much. It was excellent.
Okay, so Angel and Denise, may I have a request for you?
Sure.
Yes.
So I'm going to be very honest with you. I've often given these talks and I've had people say exactly what you just said to me, Angel and Denise, right? Thank you. This really resonated with me and so on. But here's what I'm going to say to you. An even bigger compliment that you can pay me than saying this was right on, these were great concepts and frameworks,
Something with
is
it.
if in 6 months you email me and tell me that you applied these concepts to yourself and you found that they were effective for you, that applying these frameworks intentionally, purposefully helped you achieve success, helped you hone your value proposition, helped you define whom you were going to trade with. And as a result, you feel like you're on an even better path to accomplishing your mission. That is something that I would like, if you're thinking in terms of true compliments and payments back, that would be what I would ask you to do.
Okay, sure.
Yep,
I'd be
I
happy
agree.
to.
Other questions, thoughts? Yes, you can certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. I will be sharing these slides with Nicole and Christine, so you can have these as access. Like I said, many of my op-eds on Forbes are on leading purposeful lives. I talk about a lot of dichotomies, this sense of why is selfishness bad? Again, if you were to think about a win-win relationship, you should be thinking about your values, which are your selfish values, and you want to uphold them, even as you're making sure that the other person is benefiting from it, right? I've had an op ed which many people resonate about, which is when being nice is not kind. So that's another one that I would, think that you might benefit from or listen to. And of course, all of these frameworks, I have written a 5-part Be the CEO of Me, Create Yourself in Forbes, and you're more than welcome to some of those thoughts as well. Okay, Lori, I appreciate that you're taking on this challenge. I look forward to doing that. And I have a question. Could you say a few words about the consequences of the pandemic, which may make it difficult for others to achieve their goals and require them to pivot to other regions of your matrix? Thank you, Michelle, for asking that question. One of the things that I do feel, and a lot of my op-eds have focused on COVID's effects, not just on our physical well-being, but also on our mental well-being. I personally, there is one particular one that I had written a few months ago about how do you continue to feel joy when pressures are piling up at work? When things externally just seem to be going so crazy, right? How do you create dialogue in the face of oppression? These are things that this last year have been causing me to think very deeply, because these are the conversations that each and every one of us are having. What would I say about that? I would say, the pandemic is what it is. It's an external shock. It has changed our lives, some for the worse. And hopefully, as we move forward with the vaccinations coming through, so that we can look at life being, resuming life to hopefully a new normal. There are a lot of things that we can take from this. Resilience, of course, grit, yes, perseverance, all of these are qualities, but also innovativeness. I mean, one of the things that I will say to you in all of the issues that I have seen people go through personally, what I have come across is this feeling of awe and inspiration for the human spirit, for our ability to strive forward no matter what obstacles are being thrown at us. So I would say, please stay with it. And it's completely okay. I was talking to a colleague of mine who's from psychology, and he said, You know, even the most optimistic ones of us are walking around with a low-grade depression these days. And I would say, you know, allow yourself to feel these emotions, but don't succumb to those emotions, right? And the best way to not succumb to it is to have this positive sense of life. And I'm hoping, I mean, I know that the frameworks that I've developed and shared with you are ones that I've had to go back personally as a touchstone for myself to remind myself of these things. You know, there are a couple of articles that I really resonated with that I read recently. They're by Paul Graham, who was the founder of Y Combinator. So if you go to his blog, you know, the two ones that really resonated with me, one is Life is Short, and the other is Billionaires Build. So Billionaires Build, you will see, is very consistent with everything that I've just talked to you about, right? What is a problem that is deeply meaningful to you that you want to solve? And then how do you go about solving that as an unmet need? And of course, the pandemic is bringing up even new problems that we can put our entrepreneurial energies towards. But the other one that he wrote, which is Life is Short, well, yeah, life is short. So what does that mean? And, you know, to be very candid, what I really appreciated from his thing is life is too short for bullshit, right? And he goes on to talk about bullshit that others impose on you, and how do you take care of those? And Michelle, to your point, right? With the pandemic, with all of the craziness and things that are going around us, we can turn around and say that there's a lot of external stuff that the world and people there are throwing at us. So how do you make sense of how do you take care of that? But then he also talks about the bullshit that we impose on ourselves, or we bring to ourselves. And so being mindful of choices that you're making, going back again to the Pareto Sudoku, and thinking about, is any one of these things out of whack in my relationships? And those relationships can be at work, professionally, or they can be relationships at home, personally, right? In every one of them, seeking alignment is the best way that one can preserve one's optimistic sense of life. Michelle, I hope that that answers the question that you asked. We still have a few minutes, about 10 or
Quick
15.
This is Angel again. I'm just wondering, will you be hosting another webinar? Is there somewhere we can see your schedule?
Michelle, I mean, we weren't planning on having another webinar. I'm happy to, if this is helpful to you on a topic that you might resonate with.
Yes.
I'll turn it over to my partner whom I trade with, and the person whose entrepreneurial energy even bought the webinar to begin with, right? I mean, one of the things that I've said to you, I get a lot of joy working with people who are like-minded. Michelle is certainly a like-minded kindred spirit. So Michelle, over to you.
Thanks, Rashmi. We did not have, as Rashmi knows, we did not have another webinar planned, but we sent out a survey to many people to ask for input on the program. And we do have some room towards the end of the program where we plan on dealing with a number of special topics that are sort of one-off webinars based on requests that we get from participants. And so I cannot yet say definitely yes, we can do it, but you know, it also depends on Rashmi's calendar. Obviously, she's you know, very busy person and highly sought after, as you may imagine. But if you know, if there's a lot of demand and we have the space and it fits in Rashmi's calendar, then that's definitely something that we want to do. So please feel free to respond to the survey if you receive it. If not, then you're welcome to send us an email.
Okay. So Lee, you put a question in. Go ahead and ask it so that we can have much more of an interactive conversation too.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had any insights or comments on doing work like this alone versus doing work like this with a partner or a group. And if you had any correlation, or maybe you've studied it actually directly, on if learners tend to be more successful if they have shared drafts or shared the process versus working completely independently.
So I would say there's no one size fits all, right, Lee? I will say this, when I was talking earlier, Angel and Denise, to the fact that, please implement this and then come back to me. One of the things I did realize, and this is something that Lee is alluding to, is that it is very difficult to do this by yourself. A lot of it is introspection. A lot of it is requiring feedback from other people too, in terms of, is it working, not working, right? Being objective, knowing whom to trust to ask the questions. So Lee, what I would say is that I have, in the executive MBA program, I not only do this executive session now, but we also do a mastery session. And in the mastery session, we do have groups of people working together and helping each other out, sense making of these questions. And I realized that it's not just cognitive, that it helps you in the cognition aspect and making sense of these frameworks and how to apply them for yourself. It also helps you emotionally, because it kind of gives you that sounding board, a safe space, a place where you would be able to trust people to talk about it. But that is the critical element. If you're doing it with someone that is not aligned with you, that is not kind, then it can actually backfire, right? So you want people that are going to be willing to be honest with you and tell it like it is, but not do it in a manner that's going to bring you down or be harsh and critical of you just to point your flaws for flaws' sake, right? So whom you choose to do this with is very important. But thank you for asking that question.
This is Phil. I was just going to make a comment. I think I'm very impressed with the value proposition and the whole idea of the grid, where you have win-win, which is when it's the only relationship that really lasts, but where you're doing what you're good at and whoever else you're dealing with is also focused in on the benefit and what they can bring. And this has such, in my mind, such huge implications for the workplace generally. I work for a very large insurance company, and we would struggle and deal with motivation and productivity and turnover issues, and people leave their jobs because they're not doing, and they're not placed in a role where they're really aspiring to what they're good at as much as they're doing what they're told to do, and they're just operating more mechanically in the job. So I wish I had thought more about this over the last several years, but I see the value of it now, even on a personal level, with my wife and our interactions and how we complement each other and how we live. And I can see where I can make some changes here. So I appreciate that. I like that that value proposition.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate that you said that. And for sure, Rob and I, my husband and I, are now married very happily for 26 years. It's been work. As you talk about personal relationships, one of the things that's my favorite saying is marriage is not a 50-50 partnership. It's a 70-30 partnership with both of you putting in the 70%. Right. And so it is a lot of work, but it's also high payoffs, I think. The other thing that when you said this, Phil, was something that resonated deeply with me. Two quotes by Ed Snyder, who was my hero. One is, money's the reward, not the reason. Goes back to, success cannot be defined by just how much wealth and status you make. It has to be that you're doing something that you love doing and you're good at it, right? You do it because you enjoy what you're doing. But that said, if you're doing it for the right reason, money is a reward and it will follow through, right? So you need to kind of distinguish between the two of them very nicely too. So, that's one quote. The other quote, Phil, is hire good people and let them do their job. Both elements again is very important. Hire people that are good at it, but you're hiring them not because they're bodies that come to work, or these days virtually, it's because of their mind at work. And a mind doesn't work when it is being told what to do. A mind works
Yeah,
because it's thinking
yes,
of its own accord.
it's really a lot about empowerment and getting people to bring their best to the table.
Yes. So I can see that we're towards the end of the session. I really appreciate all of you who stayed back. And also I understand that people have to go as well. What I will leave you with are some final thoughts that I personally have as it relates to, how to incorporate this framework to yourself. There are 3 components, I believe, to an intentional and purposeful life. One is that you're constantly asking yourself, what are you up to? Right? It's in some ways allowing yourself then to be honest about what it is that you're doing. Because when you're asking what you're up to, you don't have to worry about putting up, image versus identity. Image is what others perceive of you. Identity is who you are. So when you're constantly asking yourself this question of what am I up to, it actually allows you to be honest with yourself and admit to yourself that there are some things that you may be doing that may be indulging in things that are actually counterproductive. You've defined a hierarchy of values. You never want to give up a higher value for a lower value, right? And so asking that question periodically for yourself helps you make sure that you're grounded to your purpose. A second interrelated component is feeling that you have developed a coherent sense of self, which again comes back to this hierarchy of values. There are components, you don't feel like a part of you is fighting with another part of you. That in fact, you're being pulled in different directions. And that's not to say that life does not require you to have trade-offs or make difficult decisions. But it's really about making sure that you feel like you are a coherent self and that your values, your activities, your thoughts, your emotions are all coming together in an integrated way. And finally, a feeling of self-love. So you can be a coherent self, but really not like who you are. But a feeling of loving who you are comes from knowing that you have worked so darn hard to define who you are, to define your values and your purpose, to put in the effort to achieving them, to developing, nurturing, warm relationships so you feel connected. Those are all elements of having a happy life. My most recent op-ed in Forbes, if you go again to my website, it will be there, is about how do you, how do you work, the meaning of work for a happy life, not just Happy New Year. So I hope that you find that that particular op-ed is also resonating with you. It's for sure things that I know I'm counting on. Happiness is a hard work in progress motion. But happiness comes when you achieve, when you sense that you've achieved your values. It's not whim worship. So I wish every one of you a very, very happy life. Thank you again for having me be part of it in a very small way.
Rajshri, do you mind sharing the last slide just so I can give
Sure.
a sense of our next webinars? And thank you again, Rajshri, for this really, really excellent, wonderful webinar. I'm sure we've already heard from the audience how much they've enjoyed this session today. And I think all of us really have learned a lot from you today, thinking about our purpose for this new year, both personally and professionally. So thank you again. And just to reiterate, today's webinar is recorded and it will be available for you to watch again on our Maryland Rebooted website. And also for those of you that are interested in having a more deeper understanding about these specific topics, please also check out our micro masterclasses that are offered by the Maryland Smith School. So I just want to take a little bit of time to introduce our next scheduled webinars if you're interested in joining. So we do have some very exciting ones scheduled. Our own marketing faculty, Jie Zhang, will be starting her 3-part retailing series. So if you are in retailing or interested in learning about retailing, you can join those. That'll start on January 27th, also on Wednesday. And then we also have a really interesting panel discussion scheduled with restaurateurs, and that'll take place in February 17th. And so we hope to see you there on either or any of these next free webinars. And thank you again for joining, and we hope to see you on our next session, and we'll end it here today. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Bye.